Hey everybody, how is everybody doing today? Happy Tuesday. It has been a bit of time since I've been live. We actually took a much needed vacation right before we are starting to get the tasting room up and running. So it took me a bit to get back to live. But today we are talking about more wine making, kind of behind the scenes stuff, and we are talking about lees and bâtonnage. Okay, so I'm sure most people have heard the term lees. Okay, it is really synonymous with wine making. So the discussion though is actually more in terms of white wine and sparkling wine production. And they play a very important role in the wine aromatics, the flavor, and the mouthfeel. Okay, so before we get into it, we're going to do a little bit more into back to our basic winemaking 101. So if you remember, yeast are responsible for converting the sugar that's inside the grapes into converting it into alcohol and carbon dioxide. And this is a cartoon I found a long time ago, and I just thought it was so cute because really alcohol is their waste product. Okay, so they take the sugar, they eat it up, and then what they do is they basically poop out carbon dioxide and alcohol, and this is the process known as alcohol fermentation. But the thing that isn't really thought about a lot is that as the yeast go through alcoholic fermentation, they are actually limiting their lifespan. The more they go through alcoholic fermentation, the shorter their life becomes. Okay? So yeast are actually killed off by alcohol. So as they're producing the alcohol, they actually become toxic to this alcohol. So as the alcohol levels increase, the yeast can die off. Okay? And additionally, when the sugar runs out, well, there's no more food for them to eat, so they are going to die. Okay, so just as humans, they age, same thing with the yeast. They naturally age and they die, and then they can die off because of the alcohol, and they can die off because of the lack of sugar, the lack of food. So when they die off, okay, this is what is called the lees. So if we look at this, this is lees on the bottom of a jar of white wine, okay? So once the organisms are dead, they can't kind of hang out in the solution anymore, so they're going to sink to the bottom of the wine, and once they sink, hi Michael, once they sink to the bottom and they're dead, this is when they are considered lees, okay? Now, luckily for us, they are, while they're knocking on death's door, their cell membrane is going to kind of pop open, and as they die, they start to release polysaccharides, fatty acids, and amino acids into the wine. And these compounds that they release into the wine is what gives us an organoleptic impact on that wine. So it's going to result into changes in the structure of the wine, the mouthfeel of the wine, the aromatics, and the flavor. So their, sacrifice provides us with that nutty caramel flavor in the wine. People often call it yeasty, okay, like baked bread, okay? And also it attributes to that creaminess in a sparkling wine and that savoriness in white wines. So these enhanced aromatic flavors and body wouldn't occur if the winemaker just allowed the lees to sit on the bottom. Okay, so if we have our wine and then all of the lees are hanging out on the bottom, very little bit of the wine itself is in contact with the dead yeast cells. So it's not going to give a very aromatic, it's not going to have a great impact. So what the winemaker has to do is he wants all of those compounds that the lees have released to be in contact with more of the juice, more of the wine. So in order to do that, the winemaker has to stir up the wine. And this stirring of the wine, which brings the lees up into the solution and floats through it until they eventually settle back down, that is called bâtonnage. right? And now if the winemaker, it's up to the winemaker how long they want to keep the wine on the lees. So the longer they keep the wine on the lees, then the more impact that lees is going to have on the wine. So some winemakers may keep it for a couple of months, others may keep it for years, okay? Like there's champagne that is on years of the lees, okay? And the more, like I said, the more it's in there, the more yeastiness we're going to get. So how do we stir it up? We use a bâtonnage tool, which honestly, I don't know if there's a really official name for it. It's just the bâtonnage tool, okay? So what this is it's a long metal rod, basically, and you put it in that bunghole of the wine barrel, and then you basically just stir. And as you stir, what that does is bring the lees up into the wine solution and allow it to float through, and they eventually are going to settle back down. But as they do this often, it allows more of the wine to be more of the lees to remain in solution, okay? Now, there are wines out there now that do not remove the lees, and that's kind of like the in thing. A lot of the funkiness of the wines, right? We have the natural wines that the yeast are in there. I had a Prosecco the other month that purposely has the lees in it, so now it's going to be really cloudy. So if we go back to the lees picture, see how cloudy that is, that's how the wine is actually being bottled, okay? But not every winemaker wants this cloudiness to be in the wine, right? Most people want to see a clear wine, okay? So what they have to do is they have to get rid of that. And what they do is they then are going to rack the wine. So all racking the wine means is that they're going to take the wine barrel or tank that the wine is that has the lees in it, and they're going to take the wine out of that barrel or tank and put it into a new barrel or tank. And since the lees are heavier and they're down on the bottom of the barrel or the tank, they do not get transferred over. So as the winemaker is moving the wine over from barrel or tank to the new barrel or tank, they make sure that they don't go all the way down to the bottom where they're then going to suck up the lees. So what that does is it helps to clarify the wine. Now, what the winemaker may also choose to do is they then may also choose to filter and fine the wine. So what that does is they're going to take the wine that's in this new barrel or tank, and they are then going to run it through a filter, okay, through a little filter. And any lees that are that were trapped in there are going to go up against that filter, and they can't go through. So all that goes through is the wine. So now you're really going to clarify that wine. It's going to be crystal clear. But the problem with that is that as you're filtering out the lees, you also could be filtering out some of the positive flavors and aromas. So it can strip that positiveness that you tried so hard to put in. So depending on what the winemaker is trying to get at, they may not rack and they may not fine, or they may rack and not fine. So again, all of these things are behind the scene decisions by the winemaker, right? And they are all the things that we have to think about and that we process in order to produce that bottle of wine that you are hopefully enjoying. So that is lees and bâtonnage, and actually a little bit about racking also. So I hope you enjoyed this, and if you did, leave me a comment, give a like, do that little save ribbon thingamajiggy so that you can come back to it if you had any questions about lees. And please make sure you're following Dracaena Wines. We are getting ready to open our tasting room, so we hope to see you soon in Paso Robles. We are on downtown right downtown on Pine Street, on the corner of 13th and Pine, and we look forward to hosting you. So please leave me a comment if you liked this. If you didn't like it, tell me what you want to hear in the future. Thank you very much, Michael, and I will see you all soon. Sláinte!